Good evening to you. Prime Minister's questions, that bravely throbbing ventricle at the heart of British democracy, October the 12th, 2022. What did we learn? First, that lacking a real Commons majority, the Truss government, for all its defiant words, is still in headlong retreat on different fronts. Yesterday, I began to list a couple of the U-turns. Today's total began within a minute and a half of questions starting when Truss was asked about a plan to get rid of a ban on no-fault evictions for people renting private flats, something that's given them some protection so far. Labour's Graham Stringer.
Spooking the markets and increasing the cost of borrowing, increasing the cost of mortgages was almost certainly an act of gross incompetence rather than malevolence. But going back on the commitment to end no-fault evictions is an act of extreme callousness. Can the Prime Minister reassure the 11 million private renters in this country that she will carry out the commitment to get rid of no-fault evictions?
I can.
Very interesting. I wonder why the Prime Minister suddenly wants to help people facing eviction. I can't think. Anyway, later she was asked about a public information campaign to help people save energy, something the business department wanted, but which Number 10 had been against for interfering in people's lives.
I know the Energy Secretary is working on a plan to help companies and individuals use energy more efficiently. We're also working on this across government.
The government are desperately trying to complicate this in order to disguise the fact that that was another U-turn. But another U-turn is exactly what it was. And yet the really big question is how Liz Truss's government makes its sums add up in a way that reassures the markets and stops our economy going down the toilet. Many Tory MPs think that she will have to reverse ferret on all of the tax cuts announced last month, though a Treasury Minister pursued by, you guessed it, not a bear, but Mel Stride, absolutely denied this would happen. If that's right, as I explained yesterday, Liz Truss will be under huge pressure to make eye-watering and, by the way, undeliverable spending cuts. So was there a third U-turn on that this afternoon?
During her leadership contest, the Prime Minister said, and I quote her exactly, "I'm very clear. I'm not planning public spending reductions." Is she going to stick to that?
Prime Minister. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wowzeroonie, that seems pretty unequivocal. No public spending cuts. But we're talking, friends, politics here. Language as slippery as a conger eel with ADHD in a bucket of marge. If she doesn't increase budgets in line with inflation, the cash would go up, and that wouldn't be a cash cut, but in the real world it would be, and it would feel like a spending cut. But there's another point. If Liz Truss is including in her spending commitment the huge amount of money for the energy bill support scheme, and why not, it is public money, then she could slash spending everywhere else and still say that there had been overall no public spending cuts. She is in real trouble. I mentioned the real world. This is about all of us. Keir Starmer quoted two people from Wolverhampton trying to buy a house, Zach and Rebecca, whose mortgage offer had just been withdrawn. He said they were furious with her. She replied again and again by accusing Labour of not backing her energy support scheme. Now, the Labour scheme, announced long before hers, is different. It only goes on for 6 months, and it is paid for in part by a windfall tax on energy companies. Sorry, did I forget to mention that there has been yet another U-turn on that subject today? Anyway, her scheme was announced during the mini-budget and is therefore part of the mini-budget. And if Labour says it wants to scrap the mini-budget, then she has, well, not a point, but a debating point, which is a smaller and less impressive beastie altogether. So how, in the end, can Liz Truss really unite the Conservative Party? With what proposition can they all agree? Right at the end of Prime Minister's questions today, we got there, courtesy of a lengthy question from the Labour MP, Matt Weston.
I'm not sure how you measure a good honeymoon, Mr. Speaker. But after 5 weeks of a crisis conceived in Downing Street, of crashing pensions, interest rates rising, mortgage market turmoil and complete financial chaos, the country has been left wanting divorce. In 2 recent polls, 60% of this country want an immediate general election. The Prime Minister claims she's in listening mode. Will she give way to the public?
Mr. Speaker, I think the last thing we need is a general election.
And with the Tories still 20 to 30 points behind in the opinion polls, they can all probably drink to that. Here's what I learned from Prime Minister's questions today. The government has not yet decided what to do, to give up on some of its tax cuts, or to make deep spending cuts, or just sit on its hands and hope something turns up. When Liz Truss said twice, "I'm genuinely unclear about something else," everybody laughed. But you know, it was probably the truest, most revealing thing she said all day. So that was the Commons, but beyond the chamber, bigger forces were still in play today. The Treasury has been trying to calm the markets by repeatedly pumping more money into the system. But it can't go on forever, and there's a cliff edge on Friday. Or is there? Overnight, there was a story in the Financial Times suggesting after the bank governor had sent the pound plunging again by telling the battered pension funds, "You have got 3 days left," it would be less of a cliff edge and more like one of those gentle looping water slides you get in children's swimming pools. Anyway, today it seems to be back to the belly flop onto the concrete. We may be quite close to some kind of market collapse. Meanwhile, to cheer us up, there's an argument going on between the government and the bank about who is more responsible. The bank says, in effect, the real trouble is confidence in the government and its fiscal plans. Not the bank's issue, thank you very much. The government says keeping the financial system working smoothly is the bank's job. It's almost funny. It's not funny. It's actually quite scary.